top story. After 21 days of heated testimony, the defense and the prosecution delivered closing arguments yesterday in Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial. NBC News senior legal correspondent Laura Jarrett has a recap for us.
The first trial of an American president soon in the hands of 7 men and 5 women. Prosecutors closing their case arguing former President Trump orchestrated a criminal conspiracy to influence the 2016 election, to pull the wool over voters' eyes, they say, by ordering the payoff of Stormy Daniels and then covering it all up. Prosecutor Joshua Steinglass trying to establish a pattern of Mr. Trump burying damaging stories that could derail his 2016 campaign, pointing to a key conversation secretly recorded by Mr. Trump's then attorney, Michael Cohen, the star prosecution witness, where Mr. Trump discussed an alleged payoff of a different woman, Steinglass calling it jaw-dropping.
So what are we going to think? Funding, yes. And it's all the stuff.
But much of closings focused on the credibility of Cohen. Quote, "We didn't pick him up at the witness store. The defendant chose Michael Cohen," Steinglass said, acknowledging Cohen's criminal history and admitted lies under oath, but telling jurors, "You don't need Michael Cohen to connect these dots, but as the ultimate insider, he can do just that." The defense has also tried to discredit Cohen as motivated to lie, desperate to put Mr. Trump behind bars, pointing to Cohen's own podcasts.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. And you better believe I want this man to go down and rot inside for what he did to me and my family.
But Steinglass took that head on, arguing Cohen is understandably angry because Mr. Trump dropped him like a hot potato after the feds came calling in 2018, urging jurors to see this case not about Michael Cohen, it's about Donald Trump. In his closing arguments, Trump attorney Todd Blanche tore into the prosecution's case and its reliance on Cohen's testimony, blasting Cohen as the human embodiment of reasonable doubt, branding him the gloat, the greatest liar of all time, and the MVP of liars, saying he lied to Congress, judges, prosecutors, bankers, his family, adding he came in here, raised his right hand, and lied to each of you repeatedly, pointing to one of the trial's most dramatic moments when Cohen was confronted with phone records suggesting he never spoke to Mr. Trump about Daniels in an October 2016 phone call lasting just 96 seconds, but instead had called Mr. Trump's bodyguard to complain about a teenage prank caller. Blanche arguing he told you he spoke to President Trump. That was a lie, and he got caught red-handed. That is perjury. Blanche striking at the heart of the 34 low-level felony counts Mr. Trump faces for allegedly falsifying his business records, arguing none of the invoices, vouchers, or checks were false, saying the legal retainer language on the records wasn't criminal or sinister, but merely generated by accounting software at the Trump Organization, and there was nothing wrong with it. President Trump is innocent, Blanche said. There is no crime, period.
This is not a trial that should happen. It's a very sad day. This is a dark day in America.
NBC's Laura Jarrett reporting for us there. Here is the timeline for today's proceedings. Judge Juan Merchan will give the jury its instructions at 10 o'clock Eastern time. That's expected to last about an hour. After that, jury deliberation begins. The judge says the jury will deliberate until about 4:30 this afternoon. Schedules for Thursday and Friday will depend on the jury's progress. Let's bring in former litigator and MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin and former U.S. attorney and MSNBC contributor Chuck Rosenberg. Also with us, of course, the host of Way Too Early, White House bureau chief at Politico, Jonathan Lemire. Good morning to you all. So, Lisa, I'll start with you. You were at your post again yesterday down at the courthouse. So the case from Donald Trump's defense team is Michael Cohen, the star witness, as he believes he is a liar, the greatest liar of all time, as Todd Blanche put it, to which the prosecution said he is. And that's exactly why Donald Trump counted on him to do his dirty deeds. How did it play out in court yesterday?
Well, I think one of the things that is missing from that sort of juxtaposition there is how much other evidence the prosecution has that has absolutely nothing to do with Michael Cohen. So if you listen to Todd Blanche yesterday, Michael Cohen is the central character in this drama. You listen to Josh Steinglass yesterday, he's nothing more than a narrator. He's a tour guide through this mountain of evidence. I thought it played pretty well that he acknowledged what Michael Cohen is and was, because he was saying, again, you played this clip from Laura. We didn't pick him up at the witness store. We didn't choose this guy. The defendant chose this guy, and he chose him exactly for the characteristics that his lawyers are telling you now makes him quintessentially untrustworthy. And I thought that was a really good moment for Josh Steinglass, who had a number of very good moments yesterday.
So, Chuck, 3 hours. We talked about this ahead of the closing arguments yesterday about just how long the day didn't end till 8 o'clock last night. 3 hours from Donald Trump's defense team, and then almost 5 hours from the prosecution. At the end of the day, what did it add up to for you?
At the end of the day, it added up to about 8 hours.
Thanks, Chuck.
Does math, too.
Yeah, he's very good.
I was told there would be math on this test. I was prepared. Look, I think that's too much. But part of that, Willie, is informed by my own experience as a federal prosecutor in a district where if I had begged for 30 minutes to close a case like this, I would have gotten 20. So I don't know what the right amount is. And I know that prosecutors and defense attorneys, want to say everything they can, because if they leave something unsaid, they will believe that was the thing that made the difference in their case. So I get it. I think it's too much, and I think there's a law of diminishing marginal return.
So, Lisa, walk us through what seemed like an important moment in the courtroom yesterday, where Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, was admonished by the judge, Judge Merchan, because Blanche had sort of said to the jury, look, you might be putting this guy in prison. You might be sending him to jail. The judge said, whoa, 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 like that's not necessarily what's going to happen. Walk us through what happened and why that matters.
So there was an objection to it. It was sustained. The prosecution asked for something called a curative instruction. That's an instruction from the jurors that they're not to take that into consideration. The reason it was so serious is, first of all, Blanche was a very experienced prosecutor. He worked in the Southern District of New York for almost 10 years. As Chuck knows, and even I know, and I was never a prosecutor, you don't mention anything in summations having to do with sentencing. Why? Because that's the province of the judge. The jury has absolutely nothing to do with the sentence. And so by raising the specter of prison, that was a big no-no, particularly given who the defendant is here, because what Blanche was trying to do was think about who you might be sending to prison. Right. This is the former president of the United States, almost trying to elevate the burden improperly. And so the curative instruction was, you're not to think about this. Sentencing is totally for me to deal with. And there's not necessarily a sentence of imprisonment that would go along with a conviction. Andrew Weissman and I were on air together last night, and he said, if you're the prosecution, that's like the best possible position to be in, because he has lifted that extra burden that Todd Blanche wanted to place on the jury by telling them, you know what, you can convict this guy and he might never do a day in prison. Don't trouble yourself about it.
Chuck, I understand from my preeminent source in this trial, Mika Brzezinski, that there are two lawyers on the jury. So when I start hearing about, Michael Cohen's a lion, Michael Cohen's this, Michael Cohen's that, and everybody's focusing on Michael Cohen, just as a lawyer, and I know Lisa and you also lawyers, what are you thinking about? When you get back there, you're looking at the documents. And it seems to me that if you've got two lawyers that are going to be back there, they're going to be saying, okay, it doesn't matter whether you like that guy or not. It's in the documents. We've got the evidence here, whether that evidence acquits Donald Trump or whether it convicts him. I wonder if that's your thought as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, Joe. Look, if I have a good case, good evidence, good documents, good witnesses, all are welcome to the jury. Lawyers, zoologists, I don't care. And also, you can't look at any one person and describe that they would be or would not be a good juror based on their occupation. But I think you're right. I think lawyers take a particularly rigorous approach to analyzing evidence and following instructions. Again, if I have a good case, that's exactly what I want.
So let's look ahead to today, guys. And Lisa, the jury instructions, 10 o'clock this morning, expected to last about an hour. And then it's in the hands of the jury, this case. Why are the jury instructions so important to what happens next?
Because the jury instructions inform how the jurors understand what are sort of complicated charges here. So remember, the charge here isn't about hush money itself. It's about the falsification of business records, and 34 of them in particular. But what makes this a felony is the accusation that these business records were falsified, essentially in service of concealing another crime. And so in that, the jury instructions are going to be critical. What does it mean to have the intent to defraud, for example? To the extent that the prosecution has alleged that that underlying crime as a conspiracy to promote Donald Trump's election through unlawful means, what are those unlawful means? We know, for example, from yesterday that Judge Merchan's final jury instructions allow for the jurors to have not a meeting of the minds, but their own opinion on what those unlawful means are. And there's sort of a grab bag of what they can be. And so the jury instructions here are absolutely critical. In particular, look for an instruction on what it means to falsify business records with an emphasis on the word cause, because Donald Trump has been accused of either falsifying the records himself or causing them to be falsified. And Josh Steinglass really emphasized yesterday this cause aspect of it. It doesn't matter that Trump may have never seen the invoices or the general ledger entries. If he set this whole thing into motion, he caused Alan Weisselberg to instruct Jeff McConney, to instruct other people to make these business records in a certain way. That will be enough, so long as the jury instructions make clear to the jury that that's how they can find what it means to falsify.
Interesting.